make a mistake when you reach your goals. We say it big and we stand bold, cause we care for the young, even the old. So just watch who win and when it done fool. The red team well bad like a gringo, full support from Dumbo and Pinto. We going all in cause we skillful, and anyway, penny go you know the team go. I saw the thing go, cause anyway she go you know the team go. Make the hard work look simple, cause anyway she go you know the thing go.
Call our members.
No alliance formed against the PNM shall prosper. Soldiers, get ready for battle. Watch. Your body says your sword. Go. Every vote have a value. That's what I've been told. So choose a party that comes true. When you reach the poll with education, medication, transportation, and construction, we've been there, done that each year. It's no contract. Give chair, give chair. We proven character with no room for failure. Give chairs, give chairs. Look out here in a nation, say, jump and play with your body, say. We sharing licks, we going all the way. Jump and play with your body, say. All over town and in the country. Jump and play with your body, say. In all constituency. Jump and play with your body, say. Come in! We will beat them back. Your finger is your ammunition. Raise your body, say. Come! 50 years and still going. Strengthening this nation. And constantly showing progress in the region, improving housing, promoting shipping, new highway building, and just got the train line coming. We moving exact and making contact. Give chance, give chance. We on the right track, don't even look back. Give chance, give chance. Look back here in a nation, say jump and wave with it. We sharing licks, we going all the way. Jump and play with your body, say. All over town and in the country. Jump and play with your body, say. In all constituency. Jump and play with your body, say. Licks for them. Karani, Bangladesh, St. Joseph, we're not losing you this time. There is no such thing as a marginal seat. Bring in the voice on. Jump and play with your body, say. What we singing? Jump and wave with your body, say. We gon' beat them back. Jump and wave with your body, say. Licks for them. Jump and wave with your body, say. Play music. Walk out. Many try but they fall down from greed and corruption. Others try racial separation, forgetting we all are one. Afro Trinbagonian, Indian Trinbagonian, Chinese Trinbagonian, and white Trinbagonian. We all in one party and run in this country. Give chairs, give chairs. It's real unity, a true rainbow country. Give chairs, give chairs. Look out here in a nation, say, jump and wave with your body, say. We sharing licks, we going all the way. Jump and wave with your body, say. All over town and in the country. Jump and wave with your body, say. In all constituency. Jump and wave with your body, say. Licks for them. Jump and wave with your body, say. Arima. Jump and generation, I stand for. Colin Marlin, Imbert, and Donna Cox, Joe Newell, Benny and Hines with the dreadlocks. We coming, we coming, we coming, we coming, we coming. PNM, PNM. PNM, PNM. Too much thief and corruption and too much bubble. She feels she could run this country only on alcohol. Flam here, flam she there, they flying in helicopter while they empty the treasury and we poor people suffer. Tell them we coming, we coming, we coming, we coming, we coming. Warn them, go on the anointed God. We coming to bust the throat. He go have one big regret. Clause 34, we will forget. No. In 2010, they run away with victory. But the enemy dead, they just get we more angry. With a new constitution, re-energize the party. No stopping, we coming like the energizer. Bunny, tell them we coming, we coming, we coming, we coming, we coming. Oh God, we come back to hang two Jack and Anil the Joker in the park. Tim Gopi Singh who playing the fool. He can't even fix his school. They go Martin Lord. We coming, we coming, we coming, we coming, we coming. Together we aspire, together we will achieve. This is the legacy that Eric Williams leave. So for the children and their children, we cannot fail. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail. We coming, we coming, we coming. This is PNM generation.
Christian, you'll tell us when.
Of the media, good morning, or good afternoon rather, Trinidad and Tobago members of the media. Thank you very much for coming to this press conference, which was called by the Caucus of the People's National Movement to update the national population on what transpired during the budget debate at around 2 a.m. this morning. So I want to thank my colleagues on my left and right, MP Colm Imbert, Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Northeast, and MP Simon de Nobrega, Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Central. So, ladies and gentlemen, first let me register my profound congratulations to the leader of the opposition for a very comprehensive response to the budget, which I thought was a stripping apart of the budget contribution by the Minister of Finance. The leader of the opposition took about 3 hours and 15 minutes to respond comprehensively to all of the pressing issues by the government, and she has stripped apart the budget as fake, as fraudulent, as a national con job perpetrated by the Minister of Finance and this UNC government. Following her 3-hour plus response, the debate started with a member of the government responding. I think it was MP Saddam Hussein, Minister Saddam Hussein, and the member of parliament for Barataria Sanwan. He responded to the leader of the opposition, and our next speaker, of course, would have responded. I can't remember the order, but as MP Scotland. So currently, we have 13 seats in the parliament. That is the opposition PNM. Unfortunately, one of our member is not well enough. That's the MP for Aruka Maloney, Mrs. Camille Robinson-Regis. So we essentially have 12 members at this point in time to respond to the government. 26 members.
28.
Or 28 members. And in addition to the 28 members in the lower house, you have ministers of government. For example, the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Public Admin, the Minister of Trade. All of these are senators, and they are entitled to join the debate in the lower house. So you're talking about over 30-something members that the government has to respond and to participate in the debate, the opposition at this point in time. 12 members. As at 2 a.m. this morning, we had about 7 members of the PNM responding to the government. But we observed that only 2 senior ministers of the government participated in the debate yesterday. 2 senior ministers. That's the Minister in the Ministry of Land, that's Saddam Hussein, and the Minister of Education. All of the ministers, or rather MPs, that participated in the debate in this very important budget were backbenchers, many of them giving their maiden contribution. Many of them never spoke in the parliament. That's what I'm talking about, the UNC members. So the PNM MPs were responding to backbenchers. Curiously, the UNC did not put their senior ministers so that we can respond to them. So up to 2 a.m. yesterday, 7 PNM MPs responding to the government, 5 MPs remaining. The Minister of Homeland Security did not participate in the debate. The Minister of Defense did not participate in the debate. The Minister of Energy, the Minister of Housing, the Minister of Works and Transport, the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, the Minister of Public Utilities, all of these ministers sat there and did not participate in the debate, and the PNM was only responding to backbenchers, persons who do not have or hold ministerial portfolio. When the Member of Parliament for Claxton Bay completed his contribution, we decided that we have 5 members remaining, and clearly the strategy of the UNC in participating in this very important budget debate was to run out all PNM MPs in the wee hours of the morning.
Using backbenchers.
Using backbenchers for us to respond to, literally us responding to shadows and to nothing. So that they can, at the end of it, when we have no more members to participate in the debate, that their senior ministers can now come and scandalize the standing orders, come with all kind of bus mark stories, come with all kinds of things, and we do not have MPs to respond to them. Our last calculation was that the UNC had about 20 more members, at least 20 more members to participate in the debate. The PNM only had 5 more members. And that doesn't count the ministers who are senators and are not members of the House. With only 5 members remaining, we decided that after the member for Claxton Bay completed his contribution, that we will not put in another speaker so that the government can run the 20 plus speakers that they still have to participate in the debate. And at least we can use the last remaining 5 members of parliament of the PNM to respond to some of the government members, especially the senior ministers who did not participate in the debate. So we did not put in a speaker, expecting the government, as a responsible government that we believe that they should be, that they would put in or add more speakers, especially their frontline government ministers. They refused to do that. And the speaker called upon the Minister of Finance to wind up the debate. The Minister of Finance was not even ready to wind up the debate. The Minister of Public Utilities sat there, did not participate. All of the senior ministers of government, Minister of Works and Transport, all of them sat there, and they could have participated in the debate if they wanted to. The Prime Minister, the Prime Minister did not even attend Parliament yesterday. She was not even in the building. And Minister Tanku, in his budget presentation, said that the Prime Minister would come and tell the population what she intended to do with respect to the thousands of workers who were misplaced under CPEP, URP, forestry, and what have you, and what she will do to put in place to ensure that our citizens, our vulnerable citizens, get access to employment. So the Prime Minister didn't have the respect for the opposition, didn't have the respect for the leader of the opposition, could not find herself in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago yesterday. And that government decided to wind up the debate yesterday and want to throw blame on the People's National Movement. And worse yet, in their press release, accuse the leader of the opposition of not being in Parliament. Nothing could be further from the truth. The leader of the opposition, members of the media, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, stood in Parliament to respond to the budget, taking approximately 3 hours and 15 minutes. After she completed her contribution, she went to Belmont and participated in a public meeting in the constituency of the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. And came back in the chamber, remained in the chamber for a couple of hours, went to her private office to continue doing her work in the Red House, never left the Red House. Came back, went back to her private office, and for the government to issue a release saying that the leader of the opposition was not present in the Parliament is very unfortunate, if I am to be very charitable to them, and very brave of them to say and to accuse the leader of the opposition of not being in the Parliament when the Prime Minister never attended Parliament yesterday. They are shameless and they are a bunch of hypocrites. And the government, this government, must be told this is your first budget, having been elected to government on April the 28th. Why didn't you put your senior ministers to enter the debate? It was up to you. It was up to you. You had 20 plus members to participate in the debate. The opposition only had 5 more. And all we are trying to do is to reserve our 5 members so that we can respond to some of your senior ministers if and when they decided to participate in the debate. So it is the government that collapsed their own debate yesterday. It is the government that ran away from being held responsible. And what is most egregious in our respectful view is that all of the major points made by the leader of the opposition in her response to the budget and all our other members of parliament responding, MP Brian Manning was very impressive. The member of parliament for Mausika, Dominic Romain, all of our MPs stripped apart the budget, making valid and essential points. And when Minister Tanku got up to wind up, he responded to not one issue or one point raised. He was unprepared, he had no notes, he was not supported by technocrats, and he refused to respond to any of the salient points, all of the salient points, by the leader of the opposition and our 7 members of parliament that participated in this debate. We had 5 more members willing and ready. And all we were trying to do for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago is to reserve our 5 members to respond to the 20+ members that the government had to participate, senior ministers to participate in the debate. What the government was trying to do is to run out the 12 speakers or members of the PNM so that their senior ministers could come, scandalize the parliament in the worst way, breach the standing orders, and not have any member of the People's National Movement in the parliament to respond to them. That was their strategy. They have absolutely no regard to accounting to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, but to engage in a strategy where over 15 of their ministers can participate in a debate and not have one or members of the opposition responding to them. How are the people of Trinidad and Tobago going to benefit from a government running away from a debate, setting the stage for their ministers to enter a debate and the opposition not having an opportunity to respond to them? So this is a very important development that took place in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago this morning. It is the government that crashed the debate, that did not put or respect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago by putting senior ministers of government to account for the budgetary measures that they announced in their national budget, the Prime Minister never finding herself or participating in the debate, and the PNM is telling the population to ignore this lie that the UNC would have put out yesterday, accusing the PNM of crashing the debate and not participating further. I saw in one newspapers where they're saying that it is the PNM that refused to put in speakers. We only had 5. Again, the government had 20-something plus senior ministers not participating, and it was up to them to put in their senior ministers and to account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So this was one of the developments that took place yesterday, and we thought that we needed to set the record straight on what transpired at around 2 a.m. This morning. Another important development that took place. So before I go on to the other issue, I will ask MP Imbut to add. Yes, yes.
I'd just like to give. I would just like to give my perspective on all of this. Clearly, the intention was that they would exhaust the PNM speakers, and then the Prime Minister in particular would come today, maybe 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or sometime like that, to say whatever she had to say. And there would be no opportunity on the part of the PNM to respond to anything she said. Clearly, when at 2 o'clock, we, not having heard from important ministers, because our debate is all about the plans and programs of the government for the next fiscal year. That's what a budget debate is. If you go back 40, 50 years, you'll see that. Ministers come and they present their plans and their programs for the fiscal year. They can't talk about their achievements because they just arrived, so there's nothing that they did in the previous year. So in the first year of a new government, you expect important ministers, national security, health, public utilities, education, whatever it is, to come and give your plans and programs for the ensuing fiscal year. And then it is the opposition's job to critique what the ministers say. So the population will get an understanding. This is what the government plans to do in the next financial year. This is what the opposition thinks about that. Okay? That did not happen. And in particular, we were all waiting for the Prime Minister to show up. We were very surprised. She didn't appear for the response of the leader of the opposition, which is a bit disrespectful. But all right, maybe she had something else to do. But we expected her to show up at some point in time and speak, because this is what the Minister of Finance had said. And this simply did not happen. So I think what happened was when we chose at 2 a.m. not to put in another PNM speaker to respond to backbenchers because there was no policy being told to us. There's nothing. You don't know what the anti-crime plan is. You don't know what the plan is to deal with roads and drains. You have floods all over the place, pothole on every road. We want to hear what the Minister of Works is going to do about that. We have water supply problems. I'm an MP. I have severe water supply problems in my constituency. It's in one of the newspapers today. We want to hear what the Minister of Public Utilities is doing about that, about water shortages and so on. They said nothing. So that we decided, look, we're going to pause and let their frontline ministers tell us what are the government's plans and programs for 2026. They chose not to. They chose to deprive us and the population of an account of what they plan to do. And their decision to just scrap the debate, and in particular the Minister of Finance decision not to respond to the various discrepancies highlighted by the leader of the opposition with respect to the budget. There are a number of discrepancies that we feel are in the numbers, in the budget numbers. We also believe the true impact of the new taxes and so on are severe. And one would expect that the Minister of Finance, listening to the response of the leader of the opposition and listening to the contributions made by PNM MPs about the true impact of all these new taxes, the increase in the price of alcohol, the increase in national insurance contributions, etc., would have something to say, because it's a debate. So he wraps up and he responds. He didn't do that. So I think what happened was the government was just embarrassed. The Prime Minister did not get her chance to speak. The senior ministers did not get their chance to speak. Maybe they wanted a bus mark, but I consider that to be a bit trivial. I think it's more important that they did not get an opportunity to tell the country and to tell us what are their plans and program for 2026. So it is out of embarrassment that they failed to do what they're supposed to do in a budget debate, which is to educate, inform, and clarify the budget measures. The Prime Minister did not have her opportunity to expatiate and to tell us what's going on and what they're doing about the thousands of retrenched workers. I think they are embarrassed, and that's why they try to turn it around. And the idea of the leader of the opposition being absent is ludicrous. There's a photograph circulating on social media of the leader of the opposition in a deer lighting ceremony with the speaker at the Red House late last night. How could she be doing that if she wasn't there? So I just wanted to make that point, that it is clear they failed, they lost the opportunity to do their job, and they're trying to turn it on us. But that is, I'm sure, any right-thinking person will see through that. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, all. I just want to add to what both MP Gonzalez and MP Mbut have said. I joined the PNM government along with MP Gonzalez in 2020, in August of 2020. And this is now my 6th budget debate, 5 under the PNM and 1 under the UNC. In every single one of those 5 budget debates, we were instructed by the Prime Minister that we were to prepare to come to Parliament to speak about what is happening in our ministry. And that included the budget debate of 2020, which would have been weeks after we had entered our respective ministries. We need to understand as a nation the importance of Parliament. Parliament has an oversight role and function, but Parliament is also the place where ministers come to discuss policies, and of course the opposition adds their voice to the debate, sometimes to point out where the gaps are, to help to close those gaps, and that is a critical function, particularly in a budget debate. It is not an easy exercise. But we also saw this during the mid-year review. Ministers came from this UNC government totally unprepared, clearly having not spoken with their technocrats, with their public servants and their ministries, to prepare to come and answer questions about the money that you are coming to the parliament to have allocated to your ministry. In those 4.5 years that we were in government, it was clear to us that the UNC had weaponized their minority in government. It is clear now to us that they are now weaponizing their majority in parliament. Ministers came and were clearly either not willing to, not able to, or afraid to defend the policy decisions of this budget that has come to the parliament. And leading off from the opposition leader, along with MP Scotland, particularly MP Manning and others, was totally eviscerated by the opposition, showing clear gaps, not only in numbers, but clear gaps in policy. I know we will continue, but I just wanted to add my voice to that initial position. Chair, back to you.
Thank you very much, MP Simon Brigger. I just want to also take the opportunity to raise another issue that transpired yesterday in the parliament. We were taken aback by what I would say an astonishing development after the leader of the opposition completed her response, a 3 hours and 15 minutes response to the budget, that the Deputy Speaker of the House, who was in the chair at that point in time, as soon as the leader of the opposition completed her contribution and her response, the Deputy Speaker rose and she informed members that she has received a motion of privilege that was filed by the Member of Parliament for Couva South. Is Couva South? That is the leader of government business, Minister Barry Padarat, who raised a motion of privilege against the leader of the opposition for a press release that was issued by the office of the opposition leader, which raised certain issues concerning the manner in which the Speaker of the House of Representatives has been conducting the affairs of the House. And in that regard, we were astonished to hear the Deputy Speaker saying that she has received that motion, and having received that motion, or given leave for the motion, she has considered the motion, and she has determined that a prima facie case has been made out against the leader of the opposition to be sent to the Committee of Privileges of the House. I just want to notify the national population that the issue of privilege is governed by Standing Order 32 of the Standing Orders of the House of Representatives. And I want to, and please allow me to read what this standing order say with respect to the submission of a motion of privileges against any member of the House. Standing Order 32. Any member desiring to raise a matter under this standing order, which is the motion of privilege, shall first obtain leave of the Speaker, who will determine whether the member is entitled to raise the matter as a question of privilege. So the member who wishes to raise the issue must seek the leave of the minister, or rather the speaker, who will determine whether the member is entitled to raise the matter. So the member makes the application to the speaker, and the speaker will determine whether or not the member is entitled to raise the matter as a question of privilege. Subsection 3 of the standing order states, and I quote, if permission is given by the speaker, or in this case, the deputy speaker, under paragraph 2 of this standing order, the member so permitted may raise it at any time after questions and request that the matter be referred to the Committee of Privileges. And then it goes on to say that no debate shall ensue on a matter raised under this standing order, but if the speaker decides that a prima facie case has been made out, he shall so state and refer the matter to the Committee of Privileges. Ladies and gentlemen, we were astonished because first, we weren't aware that any member of the House had approached the speaker requesting leave to raise a matter of privileges on the floor of the Parliament. And if that is the case, and the speaker grants the leave, the member reads out the motion on the floor of the Parliament.
Behind closed doors.
Not behind closed doors. It is not a kangaroo court. It is nothing that you have to do in secret, but it appears that in this case, all of these things were shrouded in secrecy in some dark room in the Parliament that we have to discover where it is located. And what makes this matter more astonishing and perhaps scandalous is that the deputy speaker said that having received the motion, she has determined that a prima facie case has been made out against the leader of the opposition. We sat in the Parliament on the last 2 occasions and we checked the records and we did not see in the records of the Parliament where leave was sought to raise this matter on the floor of the Parliament. But here we were yesterday, the deputy speaker informing the entire Parliament and the world that she gave leave, she granted leave, the matter was raised, and she considered.
It wasn't raised.
Well, she said that it was raised.
It was never raised.
But it was never raised. It was never raised. We checked the Hansard, and there's nowhere on the record of Hansard that this matter was raised in accordance with the standing orders of the Parliament by the member for Couva South, the Minister of Public Utilities. But yet the deputy speaker said that she considered the matter and she determined that a prima facie case was made out and referred the leader of the opposition to the Privileges Committee. I want to tell you, members of the media, this is just not a procedural flaw. This is not a procedural irregularity. It is a scandalous disrespect for the standing orders of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago and a public lynching of the leader of the opposition and a member of Parliament in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Immediately following her response to the budget. And that should concern every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. It was well planned. It was well choreographed. They knew exactly what they were doing. And they were prepared to breach the standing orders of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago to create a distraction and to publicly lynch the leader of the opposition. And I want to remind members of the media and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, the UNC's tenure between 2010 and 2015, they have a track record of using the standing orders of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago to attack members of the PNM. It was a UNC Speaker of the House that authorized and the Prime Minister that authorized a member of Parliament to go on Hansard and say the worst thing about a former Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, using Vanilla Toppin Allen, or Allen Toppin, to scandalize a sitting member of the opposition, an opposition leader. That's the same UNC. That is the same UNC. And today they are UNC 2.0. Just 6 months in office, using the same standing orders to lynch another opposition leader. It is an attack on our democracy. It is an attack on our institution, and the PNM will have none of it. Stand by, and we will have quite a much more to say on this matter.
I just want to say one thing. We also view it as a distraction. It was obviously intended to take away from the response of the leader of the opposition. And we won't be distracted. And the matter will take its course. We are not intimidated. We're not bothered by this. It was definitely intended to take away from the very comprehensive response of the leader of the opposition to the budget. Obvious distraction. Okay. Want to go into the... Yeah, let's go. Yeah, sure. One of the reasons why we call this press conference is that there are some things we wanted to say, but we were not allowed to say last night. I've prepared a handout, I'll give it to you. But there's just one important point I would like to make. You would have heard from the leader of the opposition that we're of the view that the budget estimates are inflated, revenues inflated, expenditures understated, and therefore the numbers are impossible. And the effect of that, unfortunately, because they've overstated revenue, inflated it, they've understated expenditure, depressed it, when they have to make payments that they must pay, because in the budget documents, this is something, and you know, it is so ironic. There are commentators in this country. When the PNM was in government, if we say, 10 of them out in the media, on the radio, in the papers, they had a lot to say. There are things in this budget which are obvious to any experienced practitioner, any experienced financial person, any experienced economist. For example, the government has deliberately understated the amount it will have to pay for servicing the public debt. If you look at the numbers over the last 5-7 years, the amount that the government pays to service its loans, its public debt, is approximately $12 billion a year, more or less. 13 billion some years, 11 billion some years, averaging 12. Last year, 2025, fiscal 2025, it was $11 billion. 12 actually. This year, they drop it to 7. Just with a pen, they take a 12 and they change it to a 7. The problem with that is that debt servicing must be paid. It's a charge on the public accounts. It has to be paid first. Before you pay anything else, you have to make your debt service payments. So that $5 billion that they took out with creative accounting from the documents, that they put back in. Now, when they put back in that $5 billion, they will either have to increase the deficit by borrowing another $5 billion to pay for that, or they'll have to cut back on a lot of the things that they said they're going to do in 2026. I expect the latter. I expect them not to be able to do most of the things that they claim they're going to do in 2026, because they have to spend that $5 billion that they have, let's call it deceitfully removed from the estimates. That has to be spent. That's the first problem. The other problem is what they're doing with national insurance. The increase in national insurance, the 45% increase, the increase for the average worker from $350 a month to $500 a month for NIS, is allegedly based on something called the 11th actuarial report of the actuaries of the National Insurance Board. Now, these actuaries, they report on a regular basis. The 11th actual report was completed at the end of June 2020. And it made all sorts of predictions and projections with respect to the National Insurance Fund. And it said that unless the government does something drastic, the National Insurance Fund will be exhausted and totally depleted by 2033, in 13 years. However, that was at the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. And those of you who were here, you will know what happened during COVID. People lost their jobs, businesses closed down, people stopped paying national insurance. They couldn't because they had no job. So, and employers couldn't pay them because business closed down. So the actuaries made estimates based on a very extreme situation in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So they estimated that the number of contributors, that is the people who pay national insurance, would decline drastically. The number I have is that they estimated that by 2024, the number of persons paying national insurance would have declined to 423,000. But they got it wrong because the economy recovered in 2022 and the number of persons paying national insurance contributions in 2024 was not 423,000. It's 488,000. It was 65,000 more people paying national insurance contribution. The other mistake the actuaries made, they felt that because the Trinidad and Tobago economy would collapse, the country would collapse, that the National Insurance Fund itself would start to evaporate at a very rapid rate. They got that wrong too. They said that by 2024, the National Insurance Fund would decline to 25 billion. They were wrong. It didn't go to 25. It went to 28. In fact, it went up during the 2023 period. So they got it totally wrong. If the Minister of Finance had looked at the actual reports of the National Insurance Board published in 2022, 2023, and 2024, he would have seen that the actuarial report was wrong. He'd have seen all the estimates were wrong. All the projections were wrong. All the estimates of doom and gloom were wrong. And therefore, there was absolutely no need to punish workers and small businesses by increasing NIS contributions by almost 50%. Completely unnecessary. And I've put the numbers in here for you. And there's one last thing I'd like to tell you. This thing about alcohol taxes, it doesn't work. I was Minister of Finance, and in the budget statement that I delivered in 2016, I announced a decision of the government to increase the taxes on alcohol by 20%. We estimated that that would give us significantly more revenue from taxes on alcohol. So we were looking forward to an additional sum from taxes on alcohol in fiscal 2017. Lo and behold, we had collected about $711 million in alcohol taxes in 2016. And instead of going up, it went down to 691 million. We had estimated almost $1 billion in alcohol taxes for 2017. We end up with less than 700 million. So the expectation with a 20% increase was that tax collection on rum and beer and so on would yield an additional 300 million. It didn't. We lost 20 million instead. And it's obvious. If you think, why does this happen? The price of alcohol just can't go exponentially up to 100 and 1,000, you know. People only have so much disposable income. So if you keep increasing the price of alcohol exponentially, people will stop buying. It's a fact. In addition, what happens when you put the price of the taxes on legal alcohol? Illegal alcohol comes. We all know there's a big trade coming across from South America in illegal alcohol. That comes through. No taxes are paid on that. So clearly, the minister has not done his research. He has not looked at what happened when we increased alcohol taxes in 2016 and 2017. And he hopes to get an extra 1 billion from alcohol taxes he just won't get it. So that is another discrepancy in the budget. And those are the things I wanted to point out, and it's in my handout here today. I'll hand it over to my colleagues.
Thank you, MP Imbert. And these are the things, members in the media, that we were planning to engage the government in this debate. We didn't run away from the debate. The government deliberately put backbenchers with no portfolio, who don't know anything about government policies, did not achieve anything, could not have done anything, couldn't contribute anything major. And we wanted to engage the government on some of these very pressing issues. There are two issues I want to briefly raise, and before I pass you on to MP Simon D. Nobrega, that I was also planning to raise on the floor of Parliament when given the opportunity. You would recall that when I served as Minister of Public Utilities, under a number of programs, a suite of programs, we completed over 400 water improvement projects, some small, medium, large projects all over the country. Communities getting water for the very first time, especially rural communities. One of the projects that we put in the Ministry of Public Utilities Development Program is a line item that is called the Northwest Water Improvement Program. We decided to design a suite of projects for the Northwest Water Improvement Program because when I became minister, I recognized that a number of booster stations were in a state of disrepair. The water treatment plants, for example, the Maraval water treatment plant, the oldest water treatment plant in Trinidad and Tobago, was in dire state of upgrade and major repairs, outstanding. Major pipelines, for example, on Mount Coco Road, had to be replaced. We refurbished over 25 booster stations in West Trinidad, in North in Santa Cruz. We refurbished the Picton Reservoir. If you drive in Port of Spain, you look at that, two large reservoirs on the top of Laventil, also being refurbished, being in a really terrible state. So that Northwest Water Improvement Program, it spanned from in the east side in Champlain, going all the way into Port of Spain, in the West Trinidad, straight down to Chaguaramas, covering over 350,000 citizens. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we use allocation in our budget to get the funding to continue those upgrades throughout Northwest Trinidad. And there were a number of other programs in Tobago, in East, Central, Southwest. Each program designed to respond to the challenges of the various districts around Trinidad and Tobago. I can tell you that the Northwest program was a very successful program because with the upgrades of water treatment plant, the installation of new pumps and booster stations, the replacement of aged infrastructure, pipelines, etc. A number of communities in Belmont, in Paramin, in Moralo Street, in Diego Martin, in Chaguaramas, parts of Laventil, the water supply in those areas improved significantly. And before we left the government, there were a number of other projects to be completed under the Northwest Water Improvement Program. The completion of that upgrade and refurbishment of the Maraval water treatment plant, which, when it is completed, will impact and improve the supply of water to over 15 to 20,000 people in Maraval, Upper Maraval, Highland Park, in La Saiva, in parts of Port of Spain, St. Anne's, Cascade, Fairways, just to name a few. I was astonished that this government, similar to what they did with the regional corporations in PNM regional corporations, they've decided to put not $1 in that Northwest Water Improvement Program, putting in jeopardy those projects, those ongoing projects in Maraval, at the Maraval Water Treatment Plant, the upgrade of aged infrastructure in Diego Martin, the replacement of booster station in Covine Road and in parts of Pity Valley. The government decided, this government decided not to put or allocate $1 to the Northwest Water Improvement Program. and as a matter of fact, have already diverted resources from that program to other parts of Trinidad. And that is the reason why, if you look at one of the newspapers today, you would see people are complaining in Covine, in Diego Martin, in parts of Pity Valley. And this morning I open the papers, I see people in La Saiva complaining. Those people are served by the Maraval water treatment plant. And I want to warn the population. I want to warn the population that all of the improvements that we would have made in Northwest Trinidad over the last 4 years will be completely reversed, and the water supply of over 350,000 people in Northwest Trinidad will be placed in jeopardy because of this wicked, cruel, and discriminatory government. The last point I want to make on public utilities is the surcharge, this increased surcharge with TNTEC for commercial and industrial customers. This government campaigned that they will not increase electricity rates in Trinidad and Tobago. As a matter of fact, when the RIC was doing its consultations, a lot of the UNC MPs went to these consultations and were very disruptive. They dragged coffins, they threatened the executive directors and the staff of the RIC, and they were very disruptive. At the end of the process, the RIC completed its report, submitted it to the PNM government, and we were considering it up to the time the election was called and we left government. The UNC campaigned that there will be no electricity increase in Trinidad and Tobago. And in August of this year, the Minister of Public Utilities said that the cabinet scrapped the RIC report. He said that the cabinet scrapped the RIC report. The Minister of Finance announced in this budget that the government has decided to impose an electricity surcharge, increasing the rates for commercial and industrial customers. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago does not have the authority to increase electricity rates in this country. The only body and the only authority that has the power to make final determination to increase rates for water and electricity is the Regulated Industries Commission. And there is a process set out in the RIC Act by which the RIC must comply, follow a rigid process, compile a report with respect to propose rates for water and electricity, and the government authorizes TNTEC to review those rates based on the recommendations of the RIC. But the government, the cabinet, does not have the power to review and to increase rates for electricity and water in Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of Finance did not say whether the government was reintroducing parts of the last RIC report, which the Minister of Public Utilities claimed was scrapped by this cabinet. And if, in fact, the Minister of Public Utilities is correct that the RIC report was scrapped, then on what legal basis is the government proposing to impose this surcharge? It is not catered for under the TNTEC Act, and of course the RIC Act only give the RIC the power to review rates for water and electricity in Trinidad and Tobago. The final point I want to make on this is that the government of Trinidad and Tobago does not have the authority to revise and to review rates for water and electricity in Trinidad and Tobago. That is the sole domain of the RIC. Compiling a report, all the government can do is to authorize TNTEC to recover those rates as approved and recommended by the RIC. The Minister of Finance is saying that the government intends to raise $396 million from this electricity rate increase. $396 million. How is TNTech going, if in fact they find a way to do it within the confines of the law, how is TNTech going to remit those funds to the consolidated fund? What is the mechanism? What is the process? TNTech is already operating at a deficit. TNTech is already depending on state subventions to undertake rehabilitation work and major capital projects. TNTech is already indebted to NGC to the tune of $6 billion. So the government is saying by this rate increase, it is not to allow TNTech to meet its operational cost or to settle the $6 billion debt owed to the NGC. But they are going to take that money and find a way for TNTech to send that money to the consolidated fund. There is no legal process for this to happen. It does not cater for under the TNTech Act. And the government has a lot of questions to answer on this particular matter. If TNTech is operating at a deficit, if TNTech is relying on state subventions to do its capital upgrades so that we can have a reliable supply of water, electricity, if TNTech is already indebted to the NGC, how is the government going to remit or to receive $396 million from this proposed rate increase? So these are very serious issues that we would like to put in the public domain, and the government has a responsibility to tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago that when the Minister of Public Utilities informed the country that the RIC report was scrapped, whether they went back into the bin, recovered the report, and they are now seeking to reintroduce this scrap report to the people and on the people of Trinidad and Tobago, contrary to their campaign promise.
Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman and, of course, MP Imbert spoke about what a debate is. The budget debate leads off with the Minister of Finance. The first respondent is the opposition leader, and that's the way it goes. The Minister of Rural Development and Local Government chose not to enter this debate yesterday. The government chose not to continue the debate so that the minister could come to the parliament and to the nation to speak about decisions, policy decisions that her government and her ministry have made. I think by now all of you know that it is in the public domain that PNM corporations have been targeted in budget allocations. I want to congratulate my young colleague, Kareem Marcel, the MP for Laventille West, who came to the parliament yesterday on his birthday and took the minister to task over some of the decisions that were taken in terms of policy. But I also want to note that in a 3-hour plus budget presentation by the minister and a 66-page budget document, the minister spent about a minute, and the document has 3 paragraphs dedicated to local government. Now, like MP Marcel, like the minister, I have also come from local government. So it's something I'm actually passionate about. And I want to point out, just to add to what MP Marcel said, PNM corporations have a combined reduction in their allocation in terms of their recurrent expenditure of $32 million. UNC corporations saw a combined increase of just over $70 million. That is their recurrent. Under the development program, PNM Corporation saw a combined decrease of $47 million. That's for the development of roads, repair of bridges, drains, recreation grounds, procurement of equipment, and the like. The UNC corporations saw a combined increase of $69 million. Now, those numbers are large, and sometimes, you can't grasp what those numbers really are. So let me give you a few highlights. The Port of Spain City Corporation, our capital city, in 2025, for drains, they were allocated $6 million. In 2026, they've been allocated $500,000. In 2025, they were allocated $6 million for roads. In 2026, that has gone down to $500,000. In contrast, the Princestown Regional Corporation in 2025 got $5 million for drains. In 2026, they've been allocated $10 million. In 2025, they were given $5 million for roads, and in 2026, that number is now $7 million. In Arima, Royal Chartered Borough of Arima, in 2025, $5.5 million was allocated for drains. That is now $500,000 in 2026. In 2025, on the roads, Arima got $5.5 million. That is now $500,000. The Chaguanas Borough Corporation, in 2025, got $5 million for drains. That is now $10 million in 2026. And in 2025 on the roads, they were given $5 million. That is now $7 million in 2026. But what should also be worrying to anyone who lives in any PNM constituency is, and I can speak for Diego Martin Borough Corporation, which I've just looked at in the yellow books, or recurrent expenditure. Recurrent expenditure for things like other contracted services, which would include scavenging and water trucking, has been reduced by millions of dollars. So what does that mean for someone who lives in Maraval, in Dibé, in Cocorite, in Belmont, in St. James, in any community in a PNM constituency? That means that you can expect, one, your garbage collection to be severely impacted. Two, it means that you will probably not get any roads done through your local government authority, because that $500,000 that has been allocated to the corporation now has to be split over sometimes 10 different districts. So I was once a councillor for Montcoco, Alice Glen. There's Petty Valley, Cocorite. There's Goodwood, La Puerta. 10 districts in the Diego Martin Borough Corporation that now have to share $500,000 for roads, and now have to share $500,000 for drains, and now have millions of dollars removed from them for things like water trucking and for garbage collection. $50,000, which is what you would get, quite frankly, cannot do a single road in a single district. And that is just the reality. Now, I heard the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government talking about a lack of equity in the way that funds were distributed, and that she had to fix those things, and it could not be fixed under the current system. I want to reject that totally, and it was rejected in the Parliament as well, so I want to endorse those statements in the Parliament. But I went back to the Ministry of Finance, their website, because that is where you will go to get every year's budget documents. And I particularly went to 2016, and I'll tell you why I went to 2016. 2016 was the year of a local government election. And I remember it because it was the year I entered local government. That election was held in November, I believe. So the budget that would have been passed for that year would have been the budget just prior to a local government election under a PNM government. And I was surprised, and I will invite the members of the media, those who are watching at home, to go to the website and see that the development program, those transfers to statutory bodies and similar votes. So every single corporation that has been allocated money by the Ministry of Finance through the Ministry of Rural Development and local government. And what we saw here was increases to the Shogunas Borough Corporation of over $10 million, increases to the Hoover Tabaki Talparo Regional Corporation, increases to the Princestown Regional Corporation. We saw decreases to the San Fernando City Corporation. We saw decreases to the Tunapuna Piaku Regional Corporation. We saw decreases to the to the Sawa Lavantil Regional Corporation. So I am saying that to show that there is no, in the lead up to a local government election, where the PNM would have been in power, and if there was a political decision to be made under a PNM government, that would be the time to make it. But we saw the equity that was exhibited and exercised by a PNM government in 2016. What we are seeing now is a line drawn in the sand, and if you put decreases on one side, it is only PNM corporations, and if you put increases on one side, it is only UNC corporations. The position that I am taking here as a former chairman of a regional corporation, as a former local government practitioner, is that this is a concerted effort to starve PNM corporations to ensure that they cannot deliver on their mandate, and look out for how that plays out for the upcoming local government election. Ladies and gentlemen, while politics are being played, people are suffering. People are suffering here because their garbage cannot be collected, their roads are in a mess, their drains cannot be cleared. When the disaster management unit needs to be called out, they will be underfunded. And on top of that, while they have eviscerated the Northwest Water Improvement Program, they have also reduced water trucking in Diego Martin. I make that statement now, and I put a marker down now, so that when we see the inevitable results, we understand that this was a policy decision playing politics, and people's lives are going to be impacted on a daily basis. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. So I think we will ask, or rather expose ourselves to questions that you may ask, you may want to ask before we bring the press conference to an end.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Shane Stover from the media. Parliament, especially debates, trends, I have always had the impression, so this is another advocate. Parliament, especially in terms of debates, I feel has always had a certain adversarial tone to it. But I get the impression that because of these latest incidents here, that it's taken a step further here. Because of what we've seen, not just in terms of what transpired in the last 24 hours, but also there was a heated exchange between MP Marcel and Mr. Farrar, I think it was last week, there were, a lot of other issues like this. You all foresee on the PNM side that these next 5 years are going to have a lot of no confidence motions, a lot of walkouts and so on?
It's a good question. The PNM will always conduct itself as a responsible opposition and a responsible political party. And as the chief whip and as the chairman of the party, I will do whatever I can to ensure that we discharge our duties fearlessly and that we are not muzzled. We are not going to allow the government to invoke standing orders so that we cannot display and discharge our duties as an opposition in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a constitutional mandate, and what we are seeing so far, it does not only concern us as a party and as a caucus, but it concerns the national population. And whatever we can do within the confines of the laws and the standing orders, we will do so to defend our democracy.
So in other words, you're not ruling it out.
Ruling out what?
The possibility of there being no confidence motions, walkouts and stuff of the like, if you all are under the impression.
We have brought motions of no confidence against some of the ministers of government. They have brought motions of no confidence against us so far within the last 5 months of this government, since this 13th parliament was convened, and I expect to see much more. I mean, look at what happened yesterday with the leader of the opposition, and in total breach of the standing order. So we expect to see a lot of that, and we are prepared for it as well as a party.
Just want to segue a little bit away from what's being discussed here. Some recent developments. We saw that the U.S. Embassy in Trinidad would have issued a statement earlier this morning where they would have asked U.S. citizens on the island to refrain from visiting any of their facilities to conduct any sort of business out of an abundance of caution. From time to time, we have seen similar bulletins in the past as it relates to public safety and security. But this one, the wording and the messaging seems to be a little bit different. As a former national security minister yourself, a former member of the National Security Council, does this strike you as concerning or interesting in any way?
This is a very concerning matter. We are taking note of a lot of the information on this issue that are already in the public domain. The issue by the U.S. Embassy, we are hearing, talk of persons being in safe houses and what have you. So people are concerned. Citizens are rightly concerned. What I am also very concerned about is the vacuum of absence or silence from the government on this particular issue. I am sure the government and government officials are taking note of what the U.S. Embassy would have put out. I'm sure they are taking note of other information that is in the public domain. I just saw that the TTPS is saying that, or confirming to a media house that they've been placed on high alert. But the government, through its spokespersons, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Homeland Security, the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, they must speak to the population on these very important things. They cannot stay quiet. And the more you stay quiet, it is going to cause more unease in the national population. So that is where I take issue. You have a lot of information out in the public domain now, and a deafening silence coming from the government. I am asking the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, the Ministers of Defense, the Minister of Homeland Security, if you can speak, please speak to the population urgently on these very important matters.
Yes, over the last 5 months, I've observed a phenomenon where the media asks the opposition to explain things that the government should be explaining. We're not in government, so we really don't know what's going on. I have been receiving the updates myself. I just looked at the website of the U.S. Embassy in Trinidad. The words are a little odd, I must say. Due to a heightened state of alert, please avoid and refrain from visiting all U.S. government facilities in Trinidad and Tobago through the holiday weekend. And what are U.S. government facilities? The embassy? I can't think of many more US government facilities. That's the only one I know. So I'm not sure what this means. But what happens when something like this is issued? It spawns all sorts of rumors and conspiracy theories. I'm sure you've seen it all over the internet, all sorts of theories, all kind of, panic and that sort of thing. And it's the government's responsibility to deal with this. It's not us. We don't know what's going on. If you need to ask the Minister of Homeland Security, the Minister of Defense, the Attorney General, and most importantly, ask the Prime Minister. We haven't seen her since when?
The
About a week.
budget day.
Yeah, it's about a week. We haven't seen the Prime Minister for a week. We expected to see her yesterday. We didn't see her. So I would respectfully request the media to ask us. We might know, but in this case, we don't know. Ask the government, please. And the point made by Mr. Gonzalez is very, very important. There's an information vacuum, silence. There's an absence of communication. All of these things spreading all over social media, panicking the population. I mean, the amount of messages I have received from my own constituents and my family, worried. And you're not hearing a word from the government. So I urge the media, please try your best to get the government to tell us what is going on, if anything. Okay.
Before I ask MP Di Nobrega to come in here, a week ago we were in Parliament debating a recommendation by the Service Commission, the President, for the appointment of an acting police commissioner and an acting deputy police commissioner. During my contribution, I took issue with the Commissioner of Police and a Deputy Commissioner of Police leaving the jurisdiction at this point in time in this country, in the midst of a state of emergency, in the midst of a murder spike, instability taking place in the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment, in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, the firing. Even yesterday, while we were in Parliament, I heard that the commanding officer of the regiment, who was sent on leave, cancelled 48 hours. He was sent back on leave yesterday. And when I took issue with the Commissioner of Police and the Deputy Commissioner of Police leaving this country at this point in time, I was prevented from prosecuting this matter. And here we are today, where the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is confirming to the media, based on what I'm seeing, that they have been placed on heightened alert. Again, give credence to the concerns that I have raised a week ago, that we are in a state of emergency. These are not normal times, and we need the heads of our national security to be on the job to protect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Shane, just to address a few things that you've raised there, right? I am communications, and one of the things that we were very proud of is that we created channels for communication from central government, outside the ministries themselves, from the Office of the Prime Minister via Facebook pages, WhatsApp channels, Instagram, Twitter, all of these things. I have perused it in the same way as MP Mbut. There is nothing that exists anywhere here. The Prime Minister, who is the head of the National Security Council, has not spoken. The Minister of Homeland Security has not spoken. But it reminds me of what happened when the state of emergency that we are still under was declared. Many of us woke up to find out we were in a state of emergency. Not a word came from the line ministers responsible for it or the Prime Minister. It was left up to the then Commissioner of Police, hours later, to come to the population to speak about it. When you have vacuums of information like this, unfortunately, rumor, anxiety, conspiracy theories run rampant. Nature abhors a vacuum. And of course, people will find ways to fill that. A responsible government would ensure that they were in front of this immediately. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Homeland Security should have all been in a place to speak to this and to assuage any fears that the population may have, because this is now becoming a hot topic in the country within the short time that we have been in this press conference.
When it comes to the privilege, emotion of privilege with against the opposition leader, just one question: because of all the breaches or subversion of the standing orders, what is the next step for the PNM or the opposition?
We just wanted to tell you that we intend to pursue certain courses of action on this particular issue, and once we pursue those courses of action that we intend to do, we will inform the national population, but we don't want to say much more on this issue at this point in time. That's it? Okay, so thank you all very much.
Power, feel the power, power, power. DJ,
touch it, bring it, baby. Touch it, bring it, baby. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul.
Yeah.
Somebody pray to me, Jesus. Somebody touch my soul. Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul.
Who, me?
While I was praying, pray to me, Jesus. Somebody touch my soul.
Life too sweet, I can't complain. The only constant is the change, and we go touch the road again. So as long as you call my name, then I will answer. I'm a happy camper, and love is my sponsor. Oh, yeah, and as long as I'm man of life, then I will dance up. No time for no anger, I'm smiling with me hands up. Yeah.
Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul.
Yeah.
Somebody pray to me, Jesus. Somebody touch my soul. Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul.